I love that song. Love that song. Love that song, buddy.
Is that copyright free?
I love that song.
We have the copyrights to that song?
Love that song. Love that.
All right. Well, we are back. This is Seminoles Sideline 365. We are back for another week post-spring game football. So we have a lot of things to talk about.
Oh, yeah. We got a lot to talk about today.
A lot of things to talk about today. But before we get into it, I want to thank our show sponsor, Coasties on the Move, for their continued support of the Seminoles Sidelines 365 network. Like I said before, they help support militaries moving across the country through a nice network of real estate listings. So if you're moving from state to state, if you're in the military, having a network of other families who are doing the same thing can help you really find the home of your dreams. So check out coastiesonthemove.com if you are in that scenario, or if you know other people who are in that scenario, and they can go ahead and help you out there. So thanks again for sponsoring the show. Yeah, so we are talking about today. Sorry, my dog is being freaking annoying. Stop. So what we're talking about today.
Show him up, Gussie.
So what we're talking about today, like we said, is wrapping up the spring game, because leading the last couple of weeks, that's all we were talking about is what we expected to see, spring football practice. We finally got to see a kickoff. So obviously you were there live. To experience it all. We had a bunch of recruits on hand for that as well. It was kind of a culmination of a lot of things. You know, NIL, the Rising Spear had their events there. So it was a lot of culmination of a lot of projects coming into play. So first, tell us, how was your experience being on the ground? The festivities, was it crowded? Was there a lot of energy around it? How did it fare?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry. Did your flight get canceled? Your flight got canceled. You get snowed in. Couldn't come down to the game. You know, I waited at the airport a couple hours.
No, I don't waste my money like that. But,
then I got your text. You know, so hey, went down, and I've got a long list of observations. So you interrupt me anytime you want. We went down on Friday early afternoon. Great weather. First of all, a big positive. A great weather weekend for FSU athletics, and there were a lot going on campus. So the first thing we caught when we arrived in town, actually, we caught the Virginia Tech Hokies playing the Lady Seminoles, and that was a top 5 national ranking matchup. Okay, and the stadium was packed; it was sold out. Even the berm, we sat outside on the berm, outside the fence, and you can actually see in, and from the parking garage where you could look over and actually see pretty good. But they lost 2 out of 3 to Virginia Tech. So I think that was a wake-up call for the ladies. They did pull out a victory on Sunday, but they were, Virginia Tech for real. And then, we kind of walked around campus a little bit, and we ended up over in College Town for the block party. They had a block party going on. College Town, and I guess that's Madison Social in there. That is a really nice strip of Tallahassee, and for the campus, because it's right there on the campus next to the intramural fields, and right there along a lot of the housing and so on. Yeah. And I'll talk a little bit later at the end of the program about some observations I made around the city of Tallahassee in general. But we kind of hung out there, and then we headed over to our Airbnb. We headed out to the Airbnb. The guy who owns the Airbnb, real nice young couple, but they need to cut their damn grass. Okay? They did everything well, but you got to cut the grass, dude. You gotta cut the grass. You
bought the place. I don't see, so
I didn't. They didn't take any pictures of the grass. But dude, you can't have ankle high grass and make it look attractive. So come on, guy. Meet expectations. Okay, Saturday game time is 5 p.m. We start off with a breakfast, best in Tallahassee, Kiki's. Yeah, oh yeah, Kiki's is always crowded, 45-minute wait. They get us in 20, and they're great. they give you a ton of food. You don't have to eat for hours after that. So after that, we go on over. We actually parked near the softball stadium, and then we walked over, got into the stadium around 4:30, something of that nature. Bought tickets outside, $10 a pop.
That's so bad. I remember the days when they didn't used to charge.
Hey, everything's about money. Hey, you got to pay people now. $10.
If you're Alabama, you can charge the spring game. I feel like Florida State's not good enough to be chargers.
Okay, well, that's debatable. $10 a pop. There was some tailgating going outside, but there was plenty of parking. They didn't have all the parking lots, roped off for the booster clubs.
Yeah.
And all that. So parking was all free in that regard. I did see some of the FSU media channels, let's say independent media channels out there with a few tents, but they weren't that crowded, to be honest with you.
James Coleman? Coleman? You see James Coleman in them up there?
I don't know. I can't remember if I saw him or not. I don't know if I would know James. I haven't met.
Why didn't you go network with some of these?
I would love to meet. I didn't have time. I'm there.
Professional intimidation.
I'm there to do the job for this channel.
And that would be the network with these other groups.
Why?
You're too busy.
Too busy. And it looks like some of those channels are kind of feuding with each other. So good luck with that. We're here to give you what's going on in FS football and athletics. So we get inside the stadium. You wanted to sit in the sun because it was really cool out. We had sweatshirts on. It was almost a fall weather. In fact, they won't even have that weather when they have their first game against Duquesne in late August. So they have a nice pregame honor with the legendary Gene Deckerhoff, who was making his final call of an FSU game, and that is the spring game, or what I would call spring scrimmage, spring controlled scrimmage. Mm-hmm. But he was honored prior to the event starting. 43 years in the business, 43 years in the business. And great guy. He's going to be missed. Have not heard anything about a replacement being named. Okay, so as the game starts, when you hear game, spring game, most people think game, kickoff, two teams battling it out for a score that maybe means a little something. Maybe one team gets steak dinner, the other gets pork and beans. I don't know. That's kind of cool, I think. Put something on the line. Because if I remember last week, KB, you and I, and you can run the tape if you want, you were saying, oh, yeah. Oh, they need to find out some stuff out here of what's going on with these guys, who can play and who can't. And we'll talk about, in my opinion, who played and who didn't. So as the game starts, first of all, the game started with 2-point conversion plays.
Yeah, even the highlight clips cut that part out because that was so boring and like they don't even show that in the videos that I'm showing here today because it was so confusing. So for the people watching on TV, we had no really context what was going on between sessions. Like the ACC announcers were, and we can get that deeper, were so terrible in producing this. The ACC network did such a terrible job of producing this event and transitioning from one session to the other, explaining what was going on. And it's something I heard across other networks and what they were saying, other medias, that said that even in the stadium, it wasn't clear necessarily what was going on. Like, were they doing 2 points? Were they doing goal line scenarios? What was going on during the different sessions? So is it true? Did they really announce in the stadium like what they were practicing?
No, they did not.
Yeah,
they did not. I couldn't tell if it was 4th and 2 for a touchdown, or it was a touchdown after and we're setting up for a 2-point play. Yeah. There was no announcement about what was happening on the field. It would have been cool if they'd had a guy with a mic, saying, okay, here's the first scenario we're going to run through. Because anybody who didn't really understand football, and there are people who don't understand football, they're at that game, they have no clue what the hell is going on. So from that standpoint, I agree with you totally. I also heard, because I didn't see the ACC network of it, I heard they were terrible.
It was awful. It was. I actually stopped watching because I was like, and to a lot of people's point, it's like most of the people who are going to watch it on TV are your more diehard fans. Most people aren't going to give up an hour and a half, 2 hours of their Saturday in the spring to watch stupid football. It has no consequences. It's a practice, and so. They want to see actual plays. They want to see live action. They don't want to see an interview with EJ Manuel on the sidelines for 10 minutes where you're panning away from the action. They were literally showing EJ on the sidelines during his interview while they were actually doing live plays.
And EJ works for them, right? EJ works for the.
Yeah, it's probably, but they were doing it because he was one of the coaches and stuff like that. So they did one with Danny. They did one with Cannell and stuff like that. But it was like usually they will do a voiceover where they'll you'll hear the interview in the background.
Yes, but you'll see the play.
They didn't do that. They just stood on the sidelines with Danny or EJ or McFadden, and they just stood there. And they never went back to the action. So you would miss periods of 5 to 10 minutes of action, and then they would go to a commercial. And so you didn't see what was going on. And now finally I was like, why? This is so bad. I'm just going to pause it and come back to it and watch commercial free later on, and I can cut through. But I felt like us watching on cable missed so many different parts of just the sessions. But at some point it became like a waste of time because it was so poorly produced. You
gotta wonder who was directing that and what the structure was, because that brings me to the point of what was Coach Norvell's structure. What did he want? I said this in our last show, the one prior to this. You know I did. What is it he expects out of this controlled scrimmage? It's not a game. It's a practice, and it's a controlled scrimmage. What did he expect out of it? I don't know what the hell he expected out of this, to be honest. After watching, sitting there for 2 or 3 hours, what he expected out of this. The one thing he got out of it for sure is that he did get to see some of his transfers step up, and I think the transfers stepped up because they felt that need to prove themselves a little bit more, and they did. And I'll talk about who that was in a minute. But I think that was number one. Number two, he accomplished, which you and I debated last time. He accomplished getting out of the game with few or no injuries. And that was my point going in, that a lot of these guys would not get involved in heavy contact. And sure enough, that played out. Okay. I'm not going to call you out on that, but it played out. So as I said, the number ones got little or no action. And I have my whiteboard sitting over here. I'm not going to pull it up. I can if you want, but let me go down my whiteboard and tell you what I saw. First of all, Jordan Travis. Jordan Travis played, okay? He played enough minutes, but he didn't look that good, all right? He didn't look that good to me. He looked average. Okay. He was running the ball. We know Jordan can run the ball. That's not to be proven. I'm surprised this spring the coaches didn't say, I want you to learn to stay in the pocket more. I don't want you running. I don't want you running. Or in this game, try to do something you're not used to doing. Okay. So number one, he played, he got through it, no injuries. He throws a pick early on. The first 2 out of 4 balls that were thrown by, I think it was Travis, and then Tate threw one. Yeah. There, 2 out of 4 were picked off on that 2-yard extra point deal.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Which was not real flashy to start the game, Now, the excuses I heard from some people were that, the coaches had told them to really push it, go for it anyways. If it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily buy into that, to be honest. I don't necessarily buy into that. Let me go down this list real quick. Robert Cooper was in there. He started the game playing. It looked like an NFL Pro Bowl. Have you seen an NFL Pro Bowl lately?
No, don't waste my time.
No, you know why? Because no one wants to watch them. It looks like patty cake. And that's what it looked like. Cooper was in there not to get hurt, and he didn't stay long. The linebacker, Bethune, did not play at all.
Well,
my understanding was hurt, or he had the flu. he was ill.
I think
Okay.
he's a little banged up, they said, so they just kept him out.
So he was out. I respect that decision. I respect that. Lovett was in there for a little while. Didn't stay long. Verse, the defensive end did
good.
show up.
He looked good.
He showed up and he looked quick. He looked strong enough and he looked quick against our offensive line, which was also, they had a lot of twos in there as well. So he might have looked a little quicker than he would.
He had 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. He blocked a kick. I mean, as much as he was able to play, he impacted that scrimmage for what it's worth. So I thought he played. He shined. He was one of the shining.
Yeah. He showed up, and I think the portal guys wanted to show up because their pressure was on them a little bit more. You know, they're looking.
I don't know if they care about that. But.
Well, I think they do care about. I think it's a competitive thing. You care about it to show up, you know, and because you're you're the new guy on the block. Micaiah Pittman.
He looked good.
He looked good. He's going to help this football team.
Yeah,
he's going to help. He's going to help this football team, and he may even help them returning punts. And I'll get into that in a minute. Trayshawn Ward and especially Benson, they looked good. Benson in particular, another portal guy, showed up. He was ready to play. He's going to help this football team. Jamie Robinson, I had on the board. He didn't even play. I don't know why he didn't play, but he didn't play.
Maybe I think they want to rotate a lot of the young.
And then of course, Tate Rodemaker. You know, I come out with still a big question mark on all the quarterbacks behind Travis Jordan. And if I'm Mike Norvell, I'm concerned. It's going to keep me awake that we're going to have a problem, that we could have a potential problem. And I think he's going to look if the right guy becomes available in the portal. Okay. So overall, average to sub-average performances. It looked a little bit in slow motion to me, the whole thing. It was kind of pushing and patty back in the NFL Pro Bowl style for anybody who watches those games. Benson shined. Sam McCall shined. Sam McCall, I think, had a couple of picks. He had one early on.
He had one pick.
He had one pick.
Got 5 tackles, 3 solo, 1 pass break.
Yeah, he looked good. Couple guys that need to step it up, portal guys. West and Johnny Wilson. They had some drops. They had some droppies there that they could have made some plays on. And I'm surprised that we didn't target them a little bit more to get them into this game, to get them into the game. So really don't know how that's going to pan out when we get into the fall. So drop balls, and there was no real long-range passes. The long-range ones fell incomplete or out of bounds. They said, well, there was a lot of wind. Well, you're going to be in games with rain and wind, okay? Yeah. So the wind wasn't that big a factor. It was not a factor inside that stadium.
That's what they said.
That's what they said. I was sitting there, and I didn't feel it, okay? That's my opinion. If that means anything, you know.
Probably doesn't.
Okay, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. We're not considered media by some sources. So, and we'll deal with that at a later date. Quarterback play, in my opinion, was unspectacular. Okay, we don't sugarcoat it, or I don't sugarcoat it.
You're speaking for yourself, but
I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for you. If you disagree with me, let me know.
Well, do you want to go through your stuff and then I'll give my.
Well, you can stop me at any time.
I tried
but
to.
I didn't like how the whole thing was structured. Like you said earlier, nobody could kind of tell what was going on. You know, we go from the 2-point conversion to back to a guy snapping the ball and a punt going off, and we had a couple of punts dropped.
Oh, really? They didn't show that from what I remember.
Well, I bet they didn't show that. Right back to special teams efforts. We still don't know who's going to be returning punts. I saw some video of the last practice they had today, and Keyshawn Hilton was returning some, and I think I saw Pittman out there returning.
Well, you know what we haven't talked about yet is how impactful it has been to lose Winston Wright. I mean, he would have been number one.
I think it showed up.
He would have been the number 1 receiver that day. He would have been on the kick return drill. Like his impact, he was the star transfer on the offensive side, and you don't have him available. I mean, that's a huge hole, and that's why I think they have to look to the transfer portal to try. If some guy is available, that's that caliber of in the top 3 rotation of receivers, you have to get that guy.
Well, even if you get a guy that maybe is he's not, you're not as high on him as a receiver, but he's a punt returner. You know, there are specialty guys that the NFL has as punt returners, and why wouldn't we have a guy that's what he does?
Well, but yeah, I mean, that's where Winston was supposed to be that dual threat, and I think Pittman, like to your point, can do that a little bit as well. But you lost both of those things in right. You lost a primary receiver, and you lost your kick returner. So, like you said, I think you have to, if there is a player like that, you have to address that hole.
And if we hope our defense, and I keep hearing, and I thought, you know, I can't really tell yet, but if let's say our defense is better or as good as last year or better than last year, we hope to be getting off the field and receiving punts, right? Returning punts. Yeah. Well, if we don't have that guy nailed down, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a problem. Yeah. There were punt drops and there was a blocked field goal. Verse, got in, blocked the field goal. Yeah. So the special teams did not have a good day. Not a good day, in my opinion. Washington offensive line, he didn't play. Gibbons played a few snaps. Cooper and Lovett, they played a few snaps.
From the observation on TV, I thought the ends played really bad. Like in on the line, the defense or offensive line on the edges, they played really not great. They didn't seem to be holding up, and the edges kind of collapsed on Travis a couple of times. But like you said, they're rotating a lot of guys in the line just because guys are sitting out too, or guys are banged up. So I understand that a little bit. So that was a little bit concerning, and obviously I think Lyles hasn't really shown up from all perspectives, shown what we thought he could be yet, and I think that will progress as we get into the fall. But I do think that kind of leads into why we're potentially still looking at the transfer portal for another offensive line.
And we'll get into that. Yeah. We'll get into that. So overall, this game didn't really change my mind about having a lot of question marks in a number of areas. Yeah. And I think the portal will be active for Florida State. There may be guys going in, but they'll certainly be looking at certain guys to fill holes. The best case out of this game, there were no major injuries coming out of spring.
Yeah. No,
I'm not sure what else we discovered, except that some of these portal guys can make an impact, a positive impact. There's some portal guys that are going to be question marks. They're going to have to still show what they can do. Yeah. Now, here's one thing that I'd like to throw out, unless you have any more questions about the scrimmage.
No, I think, just to reiterate the takeaways, I think, like you said, I think there's still questions at the backup quarterback position because I don't think Tate went out there and lit up anything or showed that, if Travis were to go down, would we feel confident that Tate can go in the game to command an offense? I don't think he can, or I wouldn't feel confident in him going out there and winning a ball game if you're down. I don't see that. I don't think he has the confidence to do that yet. He wasn't out there just flinging it around. No, I think like his first throw of the game, or aside from the 2-point conversion drill or goal line drill, whatever that was, he made a great back shoulder throw on the sideline, which was a really good. But after that, I didn't see anything. It's one play. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying. I think that's something that they may look into addressing. Yeah, he's also making those throws when he knows his head is not going to be handed to him. Yeah. A couple of times at DN, it might have been Verse, ran right by him. Because it's a no contact. I remember one play, he would have creamed him. Well, they took one touchdown away because the guy was like you said, there was no hit. They can't hit him. So it's like, did they get there first? Did they get the ball off? So there are some of those 50-50 things. Like you said, it's so hard to judge, but and the defense is going to be ahead of the offense in these types of scenarios most of the time. So, so I think we have to take that for what it is too, but I didn't feel more confident out of that. I'll let you make excuses for him. I'll be the bad guy. I'm not making excuses for him. I said, how's it making excuses when I said I don't feel more confident? Well, here's one point I want to bring up. This is a coaching point as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not sure how many people picked up on this, but I picked up on it. And I don't know
if it was lackadaisical behavior on Tate's part, or this is what he's being coached to do. So Tate would give, he'd give a handoff, and you know how the quarterback rotates away then? He, like he's going to rotate away and fake it like he's bootlegging it or something. Well, Tate bootlegs it, he bootlegs it past the line of scrimmage and starts to follow the plays. Now, my point is a big one. If you do that in a real game, you're a free body for some defender to take you out. Am I right? Tell me I'm wrong.
I mean,
and he does it constantly you go back and look at that game. He is constantly rotating well beyond the line of scrimmage. And in a live game, a linebacker could pick him off and dump him on his ass.
Well, that's the way you learn, right?
You want to lose a quarterback without the ball?
So you're talking about like this right here. I'll share it right here.
Where he's going downfield.
So you're talking.
I've never seen a guy do this.
So you're talking about when he's rotating up there. We're running back. Right here. Fake hand up, but hands up.
Right there. And he's rotating up, all the way up. Now a defender could pick him off. Yeah. Okay? Once he's faked and he's gotten up to the line, he's got to watch himself. He's going to get hurt. Yeah. Tell me I'm wrong. He's not. I hope he doesn't think he has immunity. Well, maybe he thought because he had the green jersey on. But if he does that against an opponent, bam, somebody's going to knock him down.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't disagree.
I don't know who the hell's teaching him that, and that's a bad habit to get into. So yeah. I'll leave that. Here's my last point on this whole spring game thing, because if I was a fan, and we do this from the fan perspective, if I was a fan, extreme fans are always going to go. I'm an extreme fan. I'm going to likely go. But you know what? I wasn't excited to go back after seeing this one. I want to be there to cover for our program, cover FSU athletics. I had a great weekend, fun weekend. But why not? Why can't Florida State invite, I don't know, pick them, Florida A&M over, not a lot of transportation cost, bring them over for a controlled scrimmage.
Well, I agree, and I feel.
Why not bring up the University of Florida?
No, okay.
For a controlled scrimmage. Okay.
Well, I think the Florida A&M idea is a great one.
You get my point. There's not going to be a lot of expenses involved. You control the scrimmage. I asked some of the fans outside the stadium, why not controlled scrimmages against another university? And I got a variety of answers. Well, they don't want to get anybody hurt. And then I thought of you after you said last week. I said, they don't want to get anybody hurt. Well, you're telling me they're playing against each other 60%? Is that what they're doing? They're just playing 60%. Nobody's trying to get hurt. What are you learning from that? So I pushed that out. High schools practice against each other in controlled scrimmages. The pros do it against other pro teams.
What I have to point out is it's an NCAA rule right now about joint practices like that. So it is an NCAA rule.
Why is it a rule?
I don't make up what the NCAA.
Well, it used to be a rule you couldn't get any crab legs from your buddy at Publix too. But stuff
I will let you know it's an NCAA restriction. But from what I hear, that it's in legislation to approve joint, like the NFL style practices, like where the Commanders will go practice with the Ravens during training camp and stuff like that.
Yeah, that would be more exciting, even if you did 7-on-7s, no tackle, whatever, and receivers against quarterbacks. That you want to put people in the stadium, you want to give them a show, because that's what this is supposed to be, a show.
I think not even just for scrimmage. I think if they were able to do it for spring practices, you take the ones against the ones for Florida State, they're going to get better, honestly.
Of course.
I think the ones of FAMU may be a better competition than the backups for Florida State right now. So if you have those guys practicing against each other, I think it could actually improve performance. If, those couple of practices you do it. I think.
Well, another fan said, "Well, we don't know if they can control their own players. They may cheat or play dirty." I'm going,
what does that mean?
What is that? Come on, that's up to the coaching staffs. That it just didn't make any sense to me. That should be something. That's how you learn about your program. You know when we're going to learn about our program?
Yeah.
At LSU. We're not going to learn much with Duquesne. Okay. Yeah. And that's another point. If you can play Duquesne, you can practice against Florida A&M or University of North Florida. You can practice against other people. That makes them better, and it makes you better.
Yeah. No, I hope this rule gets passed because I think it would be fun. I think these networks could televise maybe one or two, like they could have a highlight scrimmage session that's different than spring game. And this would give the networks money, which gives the schools money, and then some of these smaller colleges could get themselves money. And it'd be fun to watch. And like you said, I think it'd be more productive than your threes going against your twos and rotating these things around. And with FAMU is actually used as a recruiting tool for Florida State. That you can recruit kids who can get the big university experience while also getting HBCU experience at the same time because the universities work closely together. So I would love the idea of it. So hopefully it is something that's allowed in the coming years. So I agree with
Two thumbs up from me on that. Yeah. Okay. You got any questions about the scrimmage?
No, the last thing I want to point out is that I was wrong. About Trey Benson. He looks great. He looks
like a feature back.
He looks like the best running back we'll have, or we've had in a while, in my opinion.
I think the running back room is deep, and if we get any play out of our offensive line, we should be easily getting 100 yards a game.
Well, I think
on the ground,
the ability for us to consistently run the ball next season is going to be critical for any success because I think that's the only way we're going to be able to open up the passing game at all. That's the only way that you're going to have time in that pocket is if we can consistently do what Benson was doing is be able to run the ball effectively like he was doing during the spring game. We were able to control the tempo, then you were able to make some passes, but I think they have to be sort of a run first, whether it's these long drawn out plays where you hand off to a receiver, it's kind of like a run. But the ability for them to do plays like this where you're running 2-3 times, getting 4, 5, 6, 7 yards, I think is the only way we're going to have a successful passing game because I just don't think the receiver talent's there yet. I think it's going to be critical, but I think I came away super impressed with Benson. Now, of course, Ward did what he does, but I think Ward and him, even to a Philly, to me, his body looked.
All those guys look good. We have a good running back group. And
I would be surprised if somebody transfers out, though. I think someone's going to transfer out.
I don't know. It's going to be hard to balance the carries with all these guys, but at least one of them is going to get injured along the way. You could lose 2 in a bad season. You could lose 2 because they are the guys that get beat up. So you're going to need some depth there, but I could see one guy maybe transferring out. Yeah. I could see that. I could see
maybe DJ Williams or a guy lower than him. But
that's real possible. Other than that, then we stayed around for the post-game concert that you wanted. I know you wanted to see that. I know you didn't want to see that. And actually, you were right on that. I was right on some things. You were right on that. That was not very good. I mean, there were people who stayed around for it. And I'm sorry. Some fans may go, I'm not going to sugarcoat it from my opinion. And I like country music. And I go to country music concerts like Luke Combs. He's good.
That guy was not Luke Combs, though.
But this guy was not close. He was more of this rah-rah. Let's hear it for this. Let's hear it for that. It got old after a while. And so it was not good. And to end the evening, the 2 hot dogs I had along the way started to give me problems. Okay. And I think they put a little bit more than relish on those hot dogs. They put Mr. Bacteria on there as well. And I'm still recovering from that, to be honest with you. So watch out for the dogs you buy. What?
Was it from inside the stadium?
Yeah, it was inside the stadium. Yeah. So other than that, We had a great weekend. Sunday, we ended up going to the Flying High Circus, which is really a highlight. And they work really hard. They're all volunteers. They're all student athletes, and they get nothing for it. There's no scholarships. There's no NIL. There's nothing. And they work really, really hard. So my hat's off to the Flying High Circus. And so in that end, I think we go into the fall with a lot of question marks, and we're going to find out what we got on national TV at LSU in the Superdome. That's where we're going to find out.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I think between now and then, you'll have some, player additions, but that's where you'll really find out.
Let's go to one of those maybe player additions.
Yeah. So the player that everyone's been
excited about
this week is Mims, or the offensive line price recruit. And so, Mims is a player that I think most Florida State fans, if you follow recruiting to any degree, are familiar with. He was a guy that Florida State got down to the top 2 in his recruiting battle out of high school. This is a highly prized offensive lineman that came down to Georgia and Florida State. Florida State thought, Florida State had no business being in his recruiting battle just because, coming off terrible seasons, this guy being
well, I don't know if they didn't have any reason to be in there.
You're not going to pull many 5-star recruits when you're
you got to try
3-5 season.
You got to try.
No, I'm not saying you don't try, but it was mostly because of Alex Atkins and the relationship he was able to build with recruits like that, and that's still why we continue to have great offensive line like our recruits coming in like we did last season. So Alex Atkins, I think it was his first season in, built that relationship. Didn't win it, but they thought that even though they didn't win it, the ability for them to make inroads with him as a player, knowing that this transfer portal was coming, that it could pay dividends down the road, and now we see it. He jumped into the portal as of a couple of days ago formally, and this is a player that Georgia, by all sources, did not want to lose at all. He was once again, just like Jermaine, was buried on a very talented roster and wasn't getting consistent playing time. I think he was like the number 7 off, lineman for them. So he just wasn't getting consistent reps, and they're just so loaded at that position that you can have high 4 or 5 stars, loaded up, and you can decide who's going to be your starter. So he was just in a tough position. He still got 3 years of eligibility left, and decide, well, and for most, he already got his deal paid out for Georgia, more or less, from NILs and whatever it may be under the table. So why not go somewhere else and get a new NIL deal and finally get some playing tape so you can get ready for the NFL as well. So that's really the summary of it. It seems like from reading various sources that this battle is going to really come down to, he wants to be close to home or closer to home, and that's one of the reasons too he was looking at Florida State, is he wanted to be closer to where he's from. So that kind of eliminates some of the choices that are out there potentially, like Oklahoma's potentially, and Texas, and maybe Ohio State. But actually, Ohio State doesn't really need an offensive lineman right now.
Oklahoma's a long ways away.
Exactly, and so they think right now, from most of the recruiting boards, especially other schools' recruiting boards, they think it's going to come down to likely Florida State and Miami for his services. And all you're hearing about is, this was the perfect timing of Rising Spear coming to fruition. And, I think they've had like 300 people sign up in the last 3 days for donation, for these donations.
But you have no idea what those donations are.
No, but the fact is that from back channels were saying that they were finalizing what his NIL package would look like. And the dollar amounts I've seen is that a player of his caliber is expecting to get a package of between $1 to $3 million plus in his NIL package. So, yeah.
I don't know who your source is on that one, but if he's correct, I'm like,
that is more or less the consensus of what a player like this is expecting if you want him to come to your school. Now, we'll never, that wow. Probably that what that.
I have not heard that number. I'm aghast.
And the reason they're saying that number is because if you give it someone like this on your offensive line, it raises Florida State's win total by 1.5 wins, most are saying, just because of the talent he brings, and he solidifies.
Yeah, but his talent has not all proven out yet, even though he's projected to be an NFL player.
And it's also the fact, too, that Georgia's seen enough of him when practice and the road, small rotation they've seen him in, and that they don't want to lose him. This isn't a player they're kicking out by any means. So
I wonder why Georgia didn't offer him additional NIL themselves.
Well, I think the fact is that
he had a discussion with somebody on that staff before he put his name in the portal.
Well, and remember, they have a new offensive line coach too this season.
Yeah.
And there's been some rumors that you either love him or you hate that guy. And so I think there may be that coming to play too, is that, okay, he's already been paid out somewhat on his, by Georgia, may not like the new coach, may want immediate playing time. So it's not always about the money. Money helps, but there are some other factors that go into that. Why sit on the bench? He needs to get some consistent.
I agree. Where can I play? Where can I likely start and play a lot? Yeah. That's got to be his key. If you want to go to the NFL, that's what you got to do. That's it. It's not going to come down to NIL. That's going to put money in your pocket now, but it's not going to come down to your dream of playing in the NFL.
Yeah. So with Amarius, I think, like we said, all indications say that Florida State, if they are going to get him, it's going to be this week. That as more time goes into his recruitment, the less likely it is that Florida State lands him, because Florida State seems to be the top dog in his recruitment based on the relationship he has with Atkin, the line, who's now the offensive coordinator, and the NIL package they can now put together with Rising Spear and having those resources in place. So the fact that if they can't secure his services within the first week, it's less likely that they land him. And now that's not to say there is any guarantee, because Florida State is projected to be a 6 or 7 win team. This is a guy that could go to any school he wanted to, more likely than not. So for him to pick Florida State would be a huge win if they can pull it off. But
it will be a huge win, as I put out on our Twitter account. It'll be a huge win for Coach Adkins. This will show that he is a 5-star recruiter. His reputation is he's a good recruiter. Now, this is a guy that he has had a past relationship with, and this is a guy that if he can bring in, this is going to be a great resume stuffer for him. Because let's face it, Coach Adkins, as much as we'd like him to be here for 20 years, he's probably not going to be here that long. He'll be lucky to be here 2 years. Yeah. Now, but this would be a big feather in his cap for sure.
Yeah. And so, Mims has listed 6 schools as like his top 6 schools to transfer to. And those are Florida State, Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, Oklahoma. The funny thing is that 3 of those schools, and he also listed Georgia, so he can always go back to Georgia, but he would have to get a waiver. In the SEC, there's a rule that you can't transfer within the conference unless you go in before the start of spring practice, which I believe is like February 1st.
In February, yeah, he's already missed it.
So he's already missed that. So he would have to get a special waiver to transfer to another SEC school. So,
and I bet that doesn't happen. I don't think they're just going to start giving these waivers out. If they're going to do that, just drop the rule.
Well, exactly.
What would he get a waiver for? That he's just disgruntled there and he wants to move on?
Most of the time it raises such bad PR that they get the waiver, right? That he complains, why are you restricting kids from where they can go? And then
just drop all the rules and let kids come and go as they want.
I agree. But so that's why some people are saying, well, why would he go to Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee and sit out a year, do that or try to get this waiver, which he may or may not get. And then you have Oklahoma, who's transferring to the SEC, but so they could.
Well, there's 2 schools. There's 2 schools that can almost guarantee he'll play at.
Miami and Florida State.
It's Miami and Florida State. He's got to establish what's important to me. What's important to me? Is it I got to get some big NIL deal, or is it eventually I want to play in the NFL? He's going to try to get both. Yeah. Okay. And where can he play? He can definitely play here at Florida State if everything we hear about him is true. I can't ever remember the last time we had recruited from high school a 5-star offensive lineman. I can't name the guy.
No, this should be, I think,
he'd be the first.
Yeah, top 8 national.
This guy is 6'7".
He's legit.
330 pounds, and he'd have 3 years of eligibility.
At least 2 within the program, I think.
Now, and we know this too, even though he's not been playing a lot there at Georgia, he's been working against some very good people in practice. He's been in a tough program.
Yeah, just like Jermaine.
Yeah, he's in a tough program.
Jermaine wasn't bad. Right. He just couldn't get reps because every guy around you is a 5-star.
That's right. So, Mr. Mims, if you're listening, and I hope you are, if you want to play, then you come to Florida State. You come to Florida State. Now, you're not going to win the national championship here, probably. That's unlikely. But you can get a lot of tape, and you can look really good here.
And
in 2 years, you'll be in the NFL. No, they don't care. The NFL doesn't care about that.
Spotlight you on that.
Right. Well, look at Jermaine Johnson. We won 5 games last year, right?
And you can be American on a 5-win team.
They're going to take you based on the play against the best teams they can find tape on. How did you perform against LSU? How did you perform against Clemson? How did you perform against Miami? How did you perform against Florida? And if you do a couple of years of that, you're going to have plenty of tape.
Absolutely.
So it's this whole thing with the NIL. We don't have enough time to. We'll do more talk on that sometime. But this thing is really it'd be amazing to be a fly in the rooms because you were just talking money there. That doesn't mean it couldn't be money and a leased car as long as you're at Florida State, a free lease, right, on a car, right?
Yeah.
You get a free SUV Cadillac truck from the Cadillac dealer if that guy will come on board with it, right?
Yeah.
And what do kids want? Money, cars, phones, and clothing. Right?
Some kids. I wouldn't say all kids, but I think some kids.
Well, yeah, I think you get it.
Everybody into the same bucket.
Okay, well, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm throwing it out there. That's what's important. They see Coach Norvell driving around that slick thing he's got. What's that 3-wheel thing he's got? He drives around that. I don't see him in that as often. I think he should park that in the garage, to be honest with you. Okay? I'm a little bit more old school on these things. I'm a little bit more, when you're coaching kids, you can get on them without you wondering, I wonder if I made him mad. Is he going into the portal now? Yeah. I mean, those days, I understand, are gone. Don't get me wrong. But, you got to, I kind of wonder if it's getting too soft sometime. If this kid gets $1 million in payments scheduled out, you know what I mean? It could be scheduled out payments. When that word gets out in your locker room, you got to wonder about that too.
I mean, but I think this will prove if Florida State's ready to play big boy ball, because this is what a top 10 type of recruit is going to cost you.
I don't doubt what you're saying. I don't doubt what you're saying. And it could establish a level in college football that some programs are not going to get there. We do not have the beneficiaries to knock some of that down from a Texas A&M or a UCLA or USC or Alabama.
But you also don't have the benefit of being a 10-win. You don't have the alumni of that.
But you've got to sell. You still have to sell your family, your people here, your facilities here. You got to also sell that you're going to play here. You're going to play here. You're going to probably start here.
Be developed into an NFL.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Absolutely. So hopefully, if they land him, I think it'll be huge momentum going into the fall, because if you have him on the line, that's going to motivate the other guys you've are recruiting around him, other offensive linemen. That great class he came in. You could maybe find another transfer who wants to play next to him potentially. So I think having a keystone recruit like that or transfer come in like that can do a lot in recruiting. If you can land him, because it shows you can win the big boy battles in the portal as well as recruiting. So it'll be interesting to see.
Now before you cut it off there, they had one other Georgia guy, Clay Webb, 6'3", 290. He's a junior, redshirt junior. I don't think Florida State has any interest in Mr. Webb. He has really little or no playing time. He hasn't even come close to cracking their lineup. So he made a smart move going into the portal, but it'll be interesting to see if he ends up in a Power 5 or something less than that. But I don't think there's any mention of Florida State bringing him in, and I don't see any reason to bring him in. We've got guys, what I think the last count was like 18 offensive linemen that we're developing. I think bringing in Clay Webb doesn't plus that up at all.
Yeah, I think I agree with you that Webb is probably a backup, maybe a backup plan, but I think they're going all in with Mims right now. So, but Webb was another 5-star guy. So it's hard to say. Yeah, if he's not playing, if he's not playing by his junior year at Georgia, then there probably is some kind of concern.
I read an article a long time ago about the hardest group of players to evaluate at the high school level are offensive linemen. So anything with stars, gets a little suspicious at times, and
you must get really suspicious when Florida State was bringing in 3-star linemen.
The average offensive lineman is the 3-star, and some of that may be questionable. That's the way it is. But they are the hardest guys to evaluate.
Yeah,
they're the hardest guy. You know why? And I'm going to say this. A lot of people may not like me saying this, but I'm going to say it because offensive linemen start off even in little league football. Usually they're the slower guys, okay, that don't move real well, don't have great agility, and they end up on the offensive line, okay? And if they don't end up there by high school, if they're playing both ways in high school, they start playing on the offensive line because of what I've said. That does not diminish their responsibilities because even the NFL has a hard time finding these guys, okay? Because these defensive players are so quick, so strong that it's a difficult process.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, I got one other thing to add before we close out tonight, and then you can add a final comment, is one of the things that I bet the staff, and again, I'm not proud to say this. I'm an alumni of Florida State. I go way back to the 70s, and I'm proud of Florida State, but I'm not going to sugarcoat what I see or I observe or my opinion. And that is, I hope the staff, when they're entertaining the families and they're bringing the kids in to see the campus, that they don't take them to West Tennessee Street. West Tennessee Street, which may not mean a lot to you, but does to me. All right. West Tennessee Street is one of the main drags in Tallahassee. It is a disaster. Okay. It is a disaster. And anybody out there want to prove me wrong, let me know. Okay. Because I called on Sunday on the way out, I called the police to report a guy laying in the middle of the sidewalk in the sun. On Sunday morning, he's laying in the middle of the sidewalk. I couldn't tell if he was dead, alive, passed out. He'd been robbed. I couldn't tell. And as the police asked me, were you able to stop? I said, no, I was in a moving lane of traffic. No one else obviously called this in. I'm going to call it in on the poor guy. This guy. But there are a bunch of people in need, would be the way to say it. Homeless people wandering around on West Tennessee Street, especially down in the area where campus is. And it's really late at night, it could be a security issue. So my thing is, don't take the recruits down to West Tennessee Street. There's nothing there for you. Okay. You got your fast food places and so on. There's a lot of places boarded up. didn't make it through the pandemic. Tallahassee is a small city, always has been. You go to the airport, they still have like 2 or 3 gates. That's all they have.
Yeah,
It's the state capital.
It was that when I went down to the spring game, 7 or 8 years ago. It was like that too, and I think that was just when they had built out College Town, and it was just like Mass and Social and a couple of other places there. And I think they just want to keep people on campus, and now, or at least football recruits, students, and that's why they built up that. Because I know a lot of the older bars off campus were starting to close down because College Town had because you have everything there. You have all restaurants, you have the bars there now, and it's all within walkable distance.
Right.
If you're living on campus now, and you go.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
So
that's right.
They're trying to insulate it into a real college field town where you don't have to go drive somewhere. Off campus. So.
The other main street, which is the center of town, runs right by the Capitol building, is Monroe Street. There's vacant buildings there. The pandemic hurt them hard, I'm sure. And it's just not great in the city areas. I really hate to say that. It doesn't give me any pleasure to report that. If I could get the mayor of Tallahassee on this program, I would address it to him or her. And it's sad to see, and maybe the mayor can't even do anything because businesses have to come in there. And it's sad to see. One place
Ron DeSantis on the show to speak up.
Ron DeSantis is the governor of Florida, and he's not going to do much with the city of Tallahassee. Okay. But the one place we found worth going to on West Tennessee Street late at night is DK Donuts. DK Donuts. Okay. And they're right there at the old Econo Lodge, which is now closed down.
Is that where we stayed with the cockroaches?
Oh, did you? Yeah. It's totally closed down. Totally closed down. Abandoned, And I told the guy inside it was great coffee, hot chocolate. We had the late night donut before we went to the Airbnb. I said, we almost went to McDonald's, but they don't have hot chocolate. He goes, God, don't go over there. It's the worst, And it's a young kid. He's going, don't go over there. Because there were these drunks hanging out there. Listen, beware, and I'm sorry to hear that. Don't take recruits to those areas. Enough said from me.
I do think that the recruiting hosts probably know just to keep them in College Town and then get them on their way out. I don't think they're going to those older school places and streets and
because I've been to a lot of college cities, college towns, and and that's part of the experience is having a really cool, neat, want to be there college town, not only for fans, but the students.
And I think they've done that with that area.
As long as the college town, that section there, right by the intramural fields and right attached to the university now, that is our street. Yeah. That's the street you want to stay on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So
that's all I got, KB.
Yep, I think so. We got some things to monitor. We'll monitor the Darius Mims situation. I think that if we don't close out that recruitment by the end of the week, then it's Florida State's lost that battle. But we'll watch that closely. And we gave our spring takeaways. So if anything breaks, we'll be sure to cover that. I will be off next week as I am traveling, but I'm sure Bruce will come to you with an exciting live show on Everything FSU Sports. So until then.
Hey, I got one other thing. You ever seen that movie Hoosiers?
No.
You've seen it.
I have. Yeah, I think I've seen
the Indiana basketball team. Great movie, Hoosiers. And the coach, he's getting a lot of bad fan reaction. They don't like him. They don't know why he's there. And they can't get one player to play. Maybe the guy was holding out for NIL. Who knows? Just kidding. But he gets on the fans. Gene Hackman, and he stops the crowd and he goes, this is the team we have. This is the team that's going to play for you. You need to get behind this team. And by God, that's what we're going to do. We need to get behind our team. Sure, we don't sugarcoat things. but we're going to get behind this team and we're going to push these guys forward. And we look forward to the fall.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So stay tuned for breaking news. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, bell button for notifications. Follow us also on Twitter. Do you want to shout out the Twitter handle real quick, Bruce?
That is Seminoles Sideline 365.
Awesome. So yeah, follow us there for the great tweets and retweets. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Have fun. Have a great week and be safe.